So welcome to the Inner Swim channel and to Yoga Essentials. So firstly, the Inner Swim channel is all about rewilding and coming back home to our true inner nature. So that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, in countless different ways. And it's a very personal thing. But essentially, coming back home to our true nature is coming back into our home frequency, into our natural state in our body, into our natural state in our energy system. And from there, we find that our emotions and our mental systems can function really well because we are grounded in our bodies, which are pieces of nature, and our energy body is flowing well. So that's what this Yoga Essentials is all about. These practices that I'm going to share with you are like the essential practices for developing, for beginning, or even for deepening your yoga practice. So these are like foundational things. And in this channel, what I hope to share with you, over time, are ways to really deepen your relationship with yoga as a state of being, and ways to bring that state of being about and to also sustain it. Because ultimately yoga can come with us off of the yoga mat and into our everyday lives, breath by breath, day by day. So in this container where we're practicing ways of connecting to this state of being, ways of bringing inner harmony about, this is the container for experiencing this state so that you kind of understand and are tuned into that frequency so that you can live yoga anytime, right? Anytime. So that's the ideal. But of course, when we're first starting on a yogic path, the container that we set for our practice is so important. And I would say mindset that we bring to the practice is so important. And the perspectives that we have about our practice are important. Even being open to shifts in perspectives are really important. So welcome to this community of people who are rewilding, coming back home to our natural state. And your natural state, everyone's natural state, is a state of well-being, is a state of health, is a state of vitality. And so, sounds like a tall order, right? But what I've found in my experience is that these practices, they often take, some time to remember these different ways of connecting with our body, connecting with our energy, connecting with our breath, and so on. But actually, they're really simple. They're really simple. And in other words, they're not complex. And it's something that we already know. So yoga is very much a remembrance. And the funny thing is, when we're little, right, when we're kids, we're often so connected to these ideas, these yogic ideas and principles, and just effortlessly. We are almost in a state of yoga, which is a state of union, which is a state of pure presence and connection. We're often already there as children, our natural state. And then, as we move through our adult years, sometimes we forget. And we can also forget and remember, and then re-forget, and then remember again, and then re-forget and remember again. So this is part of the fun, and going along on these cycles of our own growth and evolution, all of that is part of the fun. So all of that to say welcome. And today, for our first Essentials yoga experience / practice, we're going to take a really deep look at our relationship to the earth herself. Now, we're always in relationship to the earth. In this very moment, you are connecting to and therefore relating to the ground beneath you in some way in your body. And we can take a moment to close our eyes and have a really tangible, really physical experience of that relationship. So however you are, you can close your eyes, and I just invite you to let your awareness drop down into the places where your body is touching the ground beneath. Now, your mind might have a lot to say here, and that's okay. But I invite you to kind of put the mind off to the side for a moment and get into a physical experience of how it is to be touching the ground. Notice, where are you touching? Notice how you are touching. Notice how it is to be touching the ground. So, of course, because of gravity, the gravitational force, this is the downward force of energy. While we're in these bodies, while we're on this planet, we will always be in physical relationship to the earth in some way. And so this relationship is really worth looking deeply into, because it's affecting us, influencing us every moment of every day, all of the time. So how we sit on the earth will affect us on a physical level, will affect our energy, how we walk, communicate something to us, but also how we sit and walk communicate something about our relationship to the earth in a wider sense. So the yogis and yoginis, we believe that we can form or be in relationship, in connection with the earth, with virtually any part of our body. And the fun is in, playing with, connecting with parts of our body that we don't normally or usually connect with. So this is one reason why you might see yogis standing on their head. And their head becomes their relationship, their connection. We might stand on our hands and handstand. So our hands become our connection. We might stand on one foot. We might stand on our chest and belly. We might stand on our feet and our shoulder blades. We might even stand on our chin. So these are all ways of just experimenting, playing with different ways of connecting to the earth. Because this is an essentials class, we're going to take it right to the essential core of what that looks like when we are very basically standing and very basically connecting with our hands, our feet, and if we have time, we might explore those same connections in different parts of the body. So before we move a bit, I want to share with you one of the Yoga Sutras. I believe it's from Book 2 of Patanjali Sutras, Book 2, verse 42. And the sutras are just like, little one-liners about yoga, written by a sage who went under the pen name Patanjali thousands and thousands of years ago. And so the sutra says, Sthira Sukham Asanam. Sthira Sukham Asanam. And this is Sanskrit, the language of yoga, and it roughly means our connection or our relationship to the earth should be steady, sthira, and joyful, sukham. Joyful or steeped in goodness, in mutual benefit, sukham. Asana is the word to mean the physical postures, the physical poses, or the physical seats that we take in a yoga practice, a yoga asana practice. And asana literally means our relationship to the earth. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this relationship in different ways, but let's start by just connecting in with our hands. Okay, so your relationship to the ground through your hands is so essential. Let's start by waking up the hands. So you can lift your hands, you can roll them around, just feel your fingers, feel your palms. Feel how each individual finger can move. The two thumbs can move. They can all move in different directions. And notice also how when your fingers move around, they affect what goes on in your palm. Good. Now bring your hands together and use the sense of touch between your two hands to massage and smooth out your awareness throughout the whole of your hands. So roll around your fingers, roll across your whole palm on both hands, roll around the back of the hands. And just imagine that you were painting your attention all over your two hands. Take a few deep breaths. Good. If your hands are cold, you can rub them together, and you'll find that creates a little heat. Beautiful. Okay. Now, open your palms up wide and energize all the way through your fingers. So when I say energize, I mean let your awareness travel all the way up the palm and all the way through the fingers. So you have awareness happening, present in the very tips of your fingers all the way through. Sometimes when we think of energizing something, we think of like a lot of energy, right? A lot of intense energy. But actually it can be really subtle. It's just a matter of almost waking up all the way through our fingers and opening up our palms. Let your fingers spread and reach up towards the sky. And you can push your hands away from you. Feel the palms spread. Good. Now point the fingers down towards the earth. Keep spreading palms and fingers. Lift fingers up towards the sky. Deep breath in. And fingers down towards the earth. Deep breath up. So once more like that. Deep breath in. Lift the fingers. Deep breath out. Lower the fingers. Good. Then you can just bring your hands parallel to the earth. And relax. Beautiful. So your hands have roots. And anytime we form a relationship or a connection to the earth through our hands and our feet, through any part of our body really, we can think of this as a way of rooting down. So your palms have 4 little roots. You could also think of them as like 4 feet or 4 places where you stand on the hands. So they are the index finger knuckle, the one that connects to your palm, the pinky knuckle, the thumb knuckle that connects to your palm, and the outer edge of the wrist. So when these 4 roots are rooted and pressing into the earth, something happens that's really interesting in the hands. So why don't we experiment with that? So wherever you are, if you have a little space on the floor to work with, that's all you need, just a little bit of space. And you can come onto your hands and your knees. Onto your hands and your knees. And just to make sure that you're nice and strong, have your wrists just below your shoulders and your hips just above your knees. So you can look back and make sure that that's happening. Good. And then you can look down at your hands. And it's always nice to have a visual when you're experimenting. So those 4 places, those 4 roots, root them down into the earth now. Your index finger knuckle, your thumb knuckle, your pinky knuckle, and the outer edge of your wrist. And just see if you notice anything happening through the rest of your hand, or even up through your arms as you root down through those places. Good. And you can relax. Maybe have a seat on your heels or be in any sort of position. So when we form a really conscious connection through our hand roots, what happens is because we are working with the gravitational pull to help us reach down through our hands, the earth actually responds to us by helping us to lift and soften in different places. When the roots are connected, you might find that this little soft webbing here between the index finger and the thumb, that this place gets a chance to soften and perhaps lift just a little bit. And also you might find that this center of your wrist also gets a chance to be light. And that's beautiful because when you're rooting down, you are allowing your energy to go down into the earth. You're allowing your strength to bear down. And the earth responds by lifting you up so that you can receive through these soft places, through these soft and light places. The very center of the palm, the very center of the wrist, and a bit of softness here in your webbing. So remember, our relationship to the earth is meant to be steady and joyful. And for any relationship to be healthy, right, it's meant to be mutually beneficial. So when we connect to the earth in this way, she is so happy to have us rooting down consciously into her, to be conscious of our connection. And she responds to that by allowing us to receive fresh energy from her, from the ground. And this, of course, happens a lot more strongly when we're actually touching the ground itself, like the naked ground. But it can really happen anytime we're connecting to ground or floor. So hopefully that's kind of landing, this idea of consciously rooting down, and because of that conscious connection, we are being filled up. We are able to receive. So there's these two directions happening in our relationships all the time. So why don't we try that again? You can come back onto your hands and your knees. Root down through your index knuckles, your thumb knuckles, your pinky knuckles, and the outer edge of your wrist. And see if you can feel the really subtle lightness, the really subtle lift through the center of your palm, in that L-shaped webbing, and the center of your wrists. Can you feel that? Keep consciously rooting down to be lifted up. And now see if that strength that you've formed in your palm roots, see if that doesn't travel up your arms, all the way up into your shoulders, creating such a strong foundation that begins in the palms and travels all the way up the arms. Taking a few deep breaths here, you can just let the crown of your head go. Imagine energy traveling down through your palm roots and up through the center of your palm, up through the center of your wrist. Inhaling from palms to shoulders. Exhaling from shoulders back through the roots. And then relax. You can just have a seat on your heels. So it might not look like we're doing much when we're standing on our hands and our knees like that. But if we're, paying close attention to the way that we are connecting to the ground, actually it requires like all of our presence, and it requires a nice strong breath. So there's a lot happening. Yeah, there's a lot happening, even though on the outside it looks quite simple. That's basically Yoga 101, right? So much happening on the inside that we can't see, and that's why we let the magic in, as the card pull reminded us. Let the magic, let the mystery of the practice be the backdrop and be in your personal experience, your inner experience of these positions, this breath, whatever it is. Beautiful. So hopefully, you're feeling like you can really connect to the earth consciously through your hands. And we're going to do this one last time. I'm going to add one more detail. So coming back onto your hands and your knees. And the fingers are comfortably spread. Yeah, so you don't want to strain the fingers, but you want them to open up. And we connect down through our index knuckles, our thumb knuckles. Feel strong on the inner edge of your hand. And then widen out and connect into the pinky knuckles and the outer edge of your palms. Maybe you can feel that little lift happening in the very center of your palms. A little lift and softness in the center of your wrists. Breathing down into your roots. And breathing in, receiving through those soft places. Now let these roots and the palm be a really strong connection. Yeah, there's a really tangible sense of like rooting down and lifting up happening in the palms. And so your fingertips are free to gently press into the earth, just to like feel the earth, to pick up on more subtle sensations. Yeah, so maybe you can flutter your fingertips along the earth. Maybe you want to gently press the fingerprints down. Use the fingerprints to feel more subtly into the ground. And take a few deep breaths like that, allowing the strength in this communication travel all the way up the arms into the shoulders. And then relax. Beautiful. So this one simple practice is so important for so many reasons, like countless reasons. In a physical sense, if we can form a good and balanced connection through our hands and our fingers, then we create strength and lightness in our body, which also works to like keep our wrists strong, to keep our arms and shoulders strong. So in other words, we can avoid injury, when we have a conscious connection. On an energetic level, when we're consciously connected, we allow for that really beautiful exchange of energy between us and the ground that we're touching. And that relationship, that energetic relationship, provides us with really fresh and nourishing energies from the earth. Okay, so I don't even mean that in a really green way. I really literally mean that. Yeah, when we connect to the earth well and with a sense of openness and rootedness, we actually nourish our bodies, we nourish our energy system. And at the same time, we develop that relationship with the earth, which makes us often more conscious about that relationship, which means we treat the earth with love because we understand our relationship, our interdependence with her. Yeah. So your feet now, I think we'll do hands and feet today. We'll see what we have time for after that. So your hands, just a little recap, your hands have 4 roots and places of softness and receptivity. And your feet now also have 4 roots. So I'm going to show you the lovely sole of the bottom of my foot. Nice views. So anytime you're practicing yoga asana, physical practice, it's so important that you're aware of your connection, your physical connection to the ground, okay? This is going to keep you from depleting yourself. It's going to keep you from injuring yourself. And it's going to benefit you by feeding you physically and feeding you energetically. So now your feet also have roots. So maybe you can guess, your feet and your hands are so similar, right? Can you see how similar they are? So both the feet and the hands have pads or roots, and also limbs that extend out, the fingers and the toes, that help us to grip and to balance. Yeah? Now your hands and your feet are so important in a yoga practice especially, because we do have typically the most nerve endings and therefore the most awareness and the most, I would say, like strong energy centers for receiving and releasing in the palms and the feet, because your energy lines, almost all of them either originate or end in the feet or the palms. But that's like, we don't need to go all up in there. Let's just think of it as they're really, really strong plugs for plugging into the earth. So your feet roots would be your big toe knuckle, sometimes called the big toe mound. And I want you to see that if I press my toes back, I can really accentuate my big toe knuckle. Can you see that? So if I press my toes towards my face, I can really show you my big toe knuckle, my big toe mound. So that's the first root. The second root is your pinky toe knuckle. So 2 little roots here. And then also you have 2 little roots in your heels. One on the outer edge and one on the inner edge. 2 little roots here. You could also think of this as like one root here in the bottom, more like a triangle. Wear your socks. No way. No socks for me. So here are your 4 roots in your feet. These are the places that you want to be connecting to the earth physically. Okay? So let's experiment with that. If you have the space, you can come stand up with me. Alright, it's okay if my head's cut off. You don't really need to see my head. More important that you see my feet. So, standing, with your feet, a little bit of space between your feet is good. It often gives you more stability to have a little space. Not too wide, right? So no wider than your hips. But let's place the feet, or the ankles rather, just beneath our leg bones, just beneath our hips here. So here's a little tip. See if you can press down through the soles of your feet so firmly that you can actually lift just your toes up off of the earth. Can you see that? How I'm lifting just my toes off of the earth. And they might not lift up very high at all. That's okay. Just see how high you can get them. You can even flutter them up and down if that feels like more appropriate. Like my teacher Uma says, the feet can be breathing along the earth. I love that idea of the feet breathing in and out, lifting up and down. And if you close your eyes and you keep with this motion, or just lift the toes up, notice what happens in your feet. Notice where you are pressing firmly through your feet. And relax the toes. So you can stay standing if you'd like. So hopefully you can feel that when your toes are up, when your toes are lifted and maybe a little spread, that it really accentuates your feet roots. Yeah, so the big toe mounds, the pinky toe and knuckles, and the inner and outer edge of your heels. This is kind of a fancy way to say that we are engaging the feet. Yeah, we are engaging the feet. We are lifting our arches, which allows our roots to be accentuated. So remember in the palm, we had that little place in the very center of the palm that lifts, like a little dome. The feet have the very same thing, the little dome or the little arch that lifts and that softens so that we can receive energy from the earth. Yeah? And this little cave of the foot, this arch of the foot, is so important because it allows us to bring energy and strength up the inner legs, up the whole of the legs actually. And the legs, of course, support the pelvis, and the pelvis supports the whole spine. So really it all originates in your feet. And when you lift your toes, you can really exaggerate that lifting of the center. Now, if you have flat feet, right, this might be less of less of a physical thing and more of an energetic thing, right? Something that maybe you can't really see, but you can feel. And if you're not feeling it and you're not seeing it, it's a practice. This is a lifelong practice. Yoga is a lifelong practice. So do not be discouraged if this isn't quite landing in your body today. Let yourself be inspired by the unknownness, yeah? And let that inspire your practice. So just to reiterate, the lifting of the toes accentuates your toe roots, but we want the toes to be able to stay relaxed and lengthened on the earth. So we don't want to always be lifting and lowering our toes, right? Not only will we not remember that, but that's not really helpful too much for when we're walking, nor is it super helpful when we're trying to balance, right, in our balancing poses or in your standing poses, right? We don't always want to be lifting and lowering the toes. So we can still create that sense of accentuation through our roots by simply bringing our awareness into the big toe knuckle, press it down, the pinky toe knuckle, press down the inner edge and the outer edge of the ball of your feet. And then the inner edges of the ankles, or the heels, and the outer edges of the heels. Consciously rooting down through those places. Let the toe pads simply rest and the toes lengthen on the earth. And just see if you can feel a little lift, almost like a suctioning of the arch of the sole of your foot along the ground. A little dome there in the center. Maybe bending your knees a touch to bring some more downward flow so that you can find your roots. And once you found your roots, press down into them, press away from the earth, and let them lift you. Let the earth respond by lifting you up through the center. Now lastly, if you close your eyes, you'll be able to feel into how balanced you are between the 2 feet, right and left, and how balanced you are between the toe side and the heel side, and how balanced you are between the inner side and the outer side of the feet. Find yourself right in the middle. And take a few deep breaths. Pressing down to be lifted up. And then relax. And if you'd like, you can shake your feet out a bit. Shake your ankles, roll your ankles. So how is that? How was that? Again, it may have come really naturally, really easily to you, or maybe this all feels like a bit too much. Wherever you find yourself on that spectrum is perfect. So in a yoga asana practice, when we might be standing, balancing, standing in different poses with our legs spread, or even flowing from one movement to the next. Right? It's important that we have a really established relationship with the earth, because as we've been experiencing, when we establish that firm and rooted connection, that conscious connection, the earth responds by nourishing us, by lifting us up. So that means over time your practice won't deplete you, but it will actually give you energy, right? Because you're connecting to the earth, which is the source of our energy as humans, as natural beings. Just the same way the plants root into the earth to receive nutrients and energy, so too do we. Right? It's just that our roots can move. our roots can move us, and our roots can change from hands to feet and all different places in our body. So that's fun. So I hope that kind of landed. And if you're here in the live, if you have any questions about any of that, please feel free to pop it in the chat box. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Why don't we do one more, okay? Because we have a little time. So why don't we do one more? Now this one is really inspired by my partner, Brad. He made a really good point. So last Saturday, I was teaching about the hand roots, and I was teaching about the foot roots, and then we were doing some stuff on our belly, and he made a really good point that we also have these 4 points of connection when we're standing or connecting to the earth through our belly, through the front of our body. So let's experiment with that. You can come down to lie down on your belly if you'd like. I'm just going to show you up here quickly before we come down. So when we stand on the earth with our belly, there's a certain yoga asana that you might see, which is to be balanced on the chest and belly and to let the legs and arms lift off of the earth. So the 4 points of connection on the front of your body, you might be able to guess, are the little tips of the lower ribs and the little tips of the front hip bones. Okay, so 2 little bony roots on the top and 2 little bony roots on the bottom. So we'll come down onto our bellies. And just start by coming down and making yourself comfortable. We find that we receive when we soften. So as you come down onto your belly, let the front of you soften. Receiving all the different textures and curvatures of the ground beneath. And also let the earth receive you. Taking a few deeper breaths, just notice how your body subtly lifts as you breathe in, because the belly presses into the earth. Notice how your body settles as you breathe out, and the belly button draws in a little closer to your spine. So even just in this doing nothing, there is an exchange of energy happening. So remember, I said at the beginning of this practice that the yogis and yoginis knew that our connection to the earth can happen through all different points of our body. The hands, the feet, the head, the belly. So I invite you to feel now how your lower ribs connect to the ground. Can you feel your low ribs connected to the ground? And now earlier I said your hip bones, right? Your front little bony protrusions in the front. But a really efficient way to connect into our pelvic roots is to press down subtly through the hip bones, but definitely through the pubic bone. So the pubic bone is right in the center. So can you press down through your pubic bone subtly? And maybe let your belly button start lifting away from the earth. So without even lifting your limbs, see if you can create this sense of standing on your low ribs, on your front hip bones and your pubic bone. And because you're rooting into these places, your belly button has this chance to lift up, and your belly engages. So let's keep playing with that connection, those roots, and see if now you can start floating your feet and maybe your knees up off of the earth. Notice what happens in your roots. And maybe your arms want to reach up away from the earth, and the shoulders can lift. Keep rooting down into your 4 points of connection and your pubic bone at the bottom. And let there be a little bit of lightness, a doming happening in your belly, a place to receive. And then come down. Take a little rest and just soften. Soften, soften. So let's try that again. Before lifting, connect into your lower rib tips, your front hip tips, and your pubic bones. And then see if you can hover the feet and the knees off of the earth because you are rooting down. And see if you can lift your arms up and let your belly draw up and in to help you lift, receive through the belly. Beautiful. Take one more breath and then come down and take a little rest. So if you'd like now, you can roll over onto your back, onto your spine. And just to release your back, you can bring your knees in. Give your knees a hug or hold the back of your thighs. And now feel that your whole spine from the base of your skull and a little lift in the neck, and the whole spine from the base of the neck all the way through to the tailbone could be connected, grounded. You can gently sway from side to side if you'd like. Play around with connecting different parts of your lower back, your sacrum. Maybe rolling the knees around and giving your sacrum a massage. And now it's up to you. If you'd like, you can finish this little practice with a moment of rest. And you can rest right on your back here, stretching your legs out nice and long, lengthening your spine on the earth, letting your arms stretch out, taking up space and going fully soft. If this bothers your lower back, you can bend your knees, plant your feet, and let your knees fall together. Option 3, if lying down doesn't feel very comfortable or appropriate, you can sit up. And if you're sitting, feeling your 2 sitting bones, right and left, like 2 roots, extending down into the earth. And as you allow your sitting bones to extend down, the earth responds by lifting you up, tall in your spine. So we'll close this yoga essentials practice for forming conscious relationship to the earth. And a moment or 2 of quiet stillness in which you are invited to witness and experience how it is to both receive the earth and also to allow yourself to be received by the earth, receiving and being received. And as you rest here, allow yourself to soften more and more. So that perhaps the boundary between your body and the earth's body begins to blur and dissolve. And you plug your whole system and your spirit into the field and the spirit of the earth that we all share. maybe staying just as you are for as long as you'd like. If you feel good resting and you have the time, why not soak it in? Gift yourself time to simply be. Maybe you'd like to place one or two of your hands somewhere on your body. And just notice how your hands receive the touch of your body. And also how your body receives the touch of your hands. We can close this practice off by singing or listening to the sound yum, Y-A-M, yum. In yoga, yum is the seed sound, the seed vibration for resonating with our heart. So if you're lying down or seated, feeling your heart's connection to the earth, maybe between the shoulder blades, or if you're upright, feeling how the spine acts like a stem connecting heart to roots. And maybe a flower blossoms in the center of your chest. And this flower, the flower of your heart, could receive the sound yum, which will begin outward, ya, and then you'll gently close your lips and turn the sound inward. Yum, yum, yum. Like a circle of sound that goes out and comes back in. Take a nice deep breath in. Yum. 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 May we be nourished by the earth. May we remember our true nature. Our inner wildness. Our inner freedom and harmony. I bow to you. Namaste. Om Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. The true teacher is within you, and it lives in the heart. Jagadambe Mata Ki Jai. She whose body is the earth, we honor her. Om Bolo Sadguru Bhagavana Ki Jai. Truth is the only true teacher. So thank you so much for joining me in this Essentials yoga practice. I hope it has nourished you. I hope you feel connected and fully supported by the earth beneath. Hopefully you've started to feel your channels of connection reopening or widening. Thank you so much. Jai Ma. Namaste.